Kool manufacturers, they say the business makes plastic vuvuzelas. The info relates to the year ended 30 June 2009. The number of vuvuzelas produced, and then they give me the sales, the total fixed cost, and the total variable cost. And they ask me, give me one example of a fixed cost and one of a variable cost. Now with fixed cost, you can name anything that will go into factory overheads. So you can say factory overheads, but they want an example. So rather say something like rent expense or indirect material, consumable stores, salary of the factory foreman, and stuff like that. For a variable, you only got the option direct material or direct labor or admin. With admin, you will say something like the secretary's salary or the depreciation on the coffee machine. Okay. So now, next one. Okay, baby. Explain why it's important to calculate the break-even point for a business before the start of a financial year. So why is it important? We need to know, the business needs to know the minimum units needed to be sold. I don't know if my English is right though. To be sold to cover fixed cost. Or you can say the business needs to know the minimum units. You can have that to cover fixed cost. Or you can say to be sold to make a profit, to start to cover fixed cost or to start making a profit. Whichever one you use is fine. Ne? Because now they know they need to produce 10 t-shirts, then the fixed cost is covered, then they start making profit. Before the 10 units, it's just covering costs. After the 10 units, they start making a profit. That's what they need to know. Okay? Next one, 4.2.3. It's actually there, ne? Use the figures above to calculate the break-even point. So break-even point, I calculate by saying the total fixed cost over the unit selling price and the variable cost unit per unit. Okay, I don't know why I talk so weird. It's maybe a Friday, ne? The unit variable cost. Okay. Here we go. So, the total fixed cost is 210. Now, can you see they don't give me the selling price per unit, they give me the totals. The total variable cost and the sales for the year. This is all totals. Okay? So how do I get per unit? I divide by the units produced. You see? Can you guys see that? So what is my sales price? Is it 40 Rand? 40 Rand. What is my variable cost? 25. So can you see your contribution is 15. So how many units must I produce? 14. Yo. That's a lot of units to produce before you start showing a profit. And your profit is only on the first unit after 14,000 is only 15 Rand. Sure. Why do I say sure? It means these people basically don't make any profit. They're going to have to make quite a few vuvuzelas before they start making a profit. So rather up the sales price a bit. That's what I'm thinking. I might be wrong. Comment on your calculation in 4.2.3. What advice would you offer Kool manufacturers? Briefly explain. So, whenever they ask you advice and you have to calculate a break-even point, what you do is you go and you compare the break-even point to the units produced. Okay? So, if I look there, can you see the units produced is 12,000. I have just calculated the break-even point is 14,000. So, in other words, can you see that your break-even point is more than your production? Can you see that? So, that means that the business hasn't even made enough vuvuzelas to cover their fixed cost. They haven't reached the 14,000. They are 2,000 short. So it means they are making a loss. Do you see that? Is everybody sharp with that? So I'm going to say the business is making a loss on 2,000 units. Ne? So what advice would you give them? Because now what happens? Can you see, if you look at it, if I have to draw a picture for you, your break-even point always have to be less than your production. Can you see that you want your production to increase and your break-even to decrease? You want the gap between them to become bigger. Ne? Can you see that? So now, what advice can you give them? Can you see you can give them advice on their production to increase their production? Ne? So your advice can be something like, in order for them to increase their production level, what can you do? How do you make more products? But they could train their workers to work more productively or efficiently. Right? That would be right. Or I can work on the break-even point. How will I get my break-even point to become less? Now, if I look at the formula, the first thing I can do is I can make my total fixed cost less. Okay? But what's easier? What's an easier comment? I can make my selling price a little bit more. Because look at this, I just want you to see, if I were to make the selling price 50 Rand, let's say that was 50 Rand. Now my contribution is 25. What would that 14,000 become? If I say 210 divided 25, what would that give me? Huh? It can't.
8,400.
And we already produced 12,000. Can you see the big profit? Now we're making profit on 3,600 units. Just by upping the selling price with 10 Rand. Okay? What other advice can I give? So I want my selling price to increase, or I want my variable cost to decrease. So what does my variable cost consist of? Direct material, direct labor, sales and distribution. So, if I want to, yes, you can open. If we look at the variable cost, you can say, I can change my supplier to make the direct material cost lower. Okay? Or, okay, can you see? Or you can say the same thing you said with your workers. Your workers become more effective, so we need to pay less overtime. So I'm bringing down my direct labor cost. Can you see all the directions you can go with this? Okay.